How are you?
It's fantastic being back in this room. It is 2 years since I was here, and it's just wonderful to be almost back to normal and seeing so many familiar and new faces as well. It's wonderful.
Amazing, good. Well, Kate, I'd like to start with your background, because I think it's quite unusual for someone who worked in finance and accounting to do what you're doing right now. So what was the point that triggered you to actually take that lane and go into crypto space?
Oh my goodness, it's quite a long story, and this goes back to the 1980s, because I am that old, when I was encouraged to do an accounting degree because I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I hated every second of it. And at the end, I ran away to America, and I went to work for an IBM business partner in Denver, working on their new systems that were being written on the AS400, which was a brand new thing. It was a very exciting computer. It only needed a small room as opposed to the massive great things that had preceded it. So I spent a year in Denver just embedded in a software production environment, and although I wasn't coding myself, I was doing stuff with what we now call UI UX. I came back with a knowledge and a love of tech, and I accidentally ended up training as an accountant because the advert said knowledge of AS400 and advantage on the bottom. So I became the accountant who did the payroll and the small business server and the creditors ledger and the Unix box, and worked all the way through. So in fact my final CFO role, I actually started the first 6 months working in the IT department of the company, doing the structuring of management data and how it was being collected and how it was being delivered to improve the data collection and the management information that came back out of that. So I've always had that dual tech and finance thing. So once I'd sort of dived really into tech, and I was running a small software company for a few years, one of our potential clients came and said, I don't want to use your software, I want to use Ethereum. And I said, what the hell is Ethereum? And this was 2015. And so I started looking it up and went, oh, this is a bit like that Bitcoin thing that I'd heard about and didn't have time to get into, darn. And I went off to South by Southwest because that's my favourite week of the year, and I went off and found the people who were doing stuff about blockchain. And because my brain was already full of finance and ledgers and tech and that intersection of the two worlds, I took one look at a blockchain and went, well, that's a ledger then. Everyone else get this? And there was a deathly hush. So that's how I ended up doing blockchain cryptocurrency stuff, because I get it and I'm able to explain it to people.
Amazing. And then comes writing.
Yes.
But it's not only surprising that you're writing, but you're writing both fiction and non-fiction, and
yes,
both on blockchain and crypto. So is it like, what inspires that, and where it started with actually writing the series that is not blockchain explained like a theory? Is it like you go on Twitter in the morning, or you put the BBC on and see, oh, cybercrime, gosh, the next novel? What is it like?
That's not quite exactly how it happened, but I was already writing non-fiction. I started off writing blogs. Your first blog is terrible, and your second blog is slightly less bad than your first, and then gradually you end up with something half decent. And so I wrote a little book about digital business back in 2014, and someone approached me to write a book about cybersecurity. And I'm like, yeah, I'm up for that. Tell me what needs to go in this. And after several dinners and coffees, I still didn't have a structure. And my friend said, why don't you do it as fiction? And I said, don't be silly, I can't write fiction. And about 8 months later, after he nagged me for the entire time, I wrote 300 words, and then I wrote a chapter, and then I wrote a book and went, oh, that I have a story. And then I left a body in the corridor, so I had to write the second one, and the fourth one came out 2 weeks ago. So they just keep going. And I build all of that emerging technology in. So there is artificial intelligence, there are drones flying around, there is Bitcoin, there is blockchain. But what I'm doing there is I'm projecting what I know and what is currently coming, and I'm saying, well, where is it going to go? What are the barriers going to be? What are the opportunities going to be? What kind of because it's never going to be utopia. So what are the things that are going to be different in a world in 25 years' time? And it's getting far, far too close to our world now, so my editor has told me that I now need to really push book 5 into, well, it's going to be the metaverse, isn't it? So
you're a visionary.
I do my best.
How many books? I know there is a series.
There's 4 fictions, there's 4 novels, and I have an MBA blockchain and cryptocurrency textbook that's on the Harvard catalogue. I've written a couple of little books about blockchain and crypto. I've written lots of short stories. I've contributed to blockchain books. So I'm always writing.
Wow. Well, that's absolutely inspiring. Good. Well, let's talk about Web3 and NFTs, the Metaverse.
Yes.
That's a very exciting stuff. I think I'm hoping to learn quite a lot here as well. So, well, some say that the next era of the internet is going to be Web3. A lot of people think, oh, Web3 is the Metaverse, and Metaverse is basically gaming, which I think it's a huge kind of, it's not even simplifying, it's much more. So could you tell us more about like which you think?
What is Web3?
Yeah.
Oh my word. I guess, I mean, we talk about industry, you know, first industrial revolution, second industrial revolution, and they're reasonably easy to identify because you're going over decades, hundreds of years to go back to, you know, okay, we've got steam, okay, we've got, you know, space, and now we've got, and so on. But with web, it's so early. I mean, when I went to work for my first tech company, we were sending messages to each other, and that was revolutionary because it was all still 7 years before we got the World Wide Web. So things have moved incredibly fast in my lifetime, probably in your lifetime as well. So is Web3 a conceit? To an extent, I think it is. But I heard a really interesting definition the other week, and it was that Web 1 was just information. So what is your username and your password? And it's a very linear relationship between you and the things that you're using online. So you have the tools there, but it's just information. And then we've moved into a new world in sort of between, I guess, 2009 onwards, when we started getting iPhones and we had social media platforms coming up and so on. And that became our Web 2.0 because we were starting to engage in groups. We were starting to have that collaborative piece, and it became a platform economy rather than an information economy. So you sign in with Facebook, you sign in with LinkedIn, and you start to get that collaboration online. But where we are now, we're starting to move into a time where people are identifying themselves again, rather than relying on the platforms. And they're not using a username and password. They might be using their wallet with appropriate checks to make sure you're human, obviously. And so that brings us into the individual engaging online. And I think that that's actually quite a neat distinction. It isn't going to be the only answer, but it's kind of a nice one to throw out there. And I know half of you know more than I do about Web3. So will that one do?
Well, I think so. You know, great. So looking at the Metaverse, I mean, you know, you could think as a small kind of gaming now, people are buying the space in Metaverse, especially brands, I think, to put their, you know, galleries or you name it there. What is actually going on in that space? Like, you know, maybe something that we don't know about. Where is this heading?
Okay, it's a really fascinating time because suddenly the word metaverse has got all, it's out there. But we've been in the metaverse for, I think, 2 decades. We've been engaging online as soon as we start to shop online and engage online with people, and people we haven't met in real life. We are in the metaverse. What we have now, though, is that sort of coming together of technologies. So we have maturing artificial intelligence. We have a wealth of too much data, doubling every couple of years. So we're starting to get very, very acute and interesting AI, machine learning coming through. We are getting the ownership piece, the ability to own a digital asset that is coming through with blockchain, with NFTs. We're getting the realities starting to mature. If you go back to Lara Croft from 1995, that's pixels. And then you look at the quality that we have now, which has to an extent, that's driven artificial intelligence development because of the demand to improve graphics cards. So we have this combination of realities, ownership, ability to engage, the rapid fiber, the arrival of 5G, everything is coming together in a bit of a perfect storm. So people go, yeah, we've got the Metaverse. And it's like, no, this is the coming together of a lot of things. And it isn't simply gaming. I think the only thing is that the perception that gaming is at the forefront of the Metaverse is accurate, because gaming is where a lot of the innovation takes place. And it's that gaming is willing to try anything to engage and to improve the game and to bring people through. So we get the play in realities, we get play within virtual worlds, we get play with ownership. And then the innovations that come from gaming start to come through into the real world. And if you think about it, CryptoKitties gave us the first, not quite the first NFT, but the first properly encoded ERC721 NFTs. No disrespect to the awesome CryptoPunks. And then from that we now have supply chains all over the world picking up NFTs and using them to twin digital assets and so on and so forth. So it's that coming together of the technologies and the transparency and the access that I think is important.
Yeah, definitely. So you mentioned NFTs, non-fungible tokens. I actually, when you try to explain it, it's easy at the same time. It's probably not so easy for many. I was watching yesterday something, and actually that was a very good explanation of non-fungible tokens when they compared that to it's just one only compared to the currency, the fiat currency, let's say £20 note. Each £20 note carries the same value, and I thought, like, wow, that's actually a very good explanation. Yeah. Which might have a better one.
No, that's exactly right. That's the quality of fungibility, and that I can exchange any £20 note for another one and still buy beer with it. But I can't do that with an artwork or a CryptoPunk or whatever. So that's the absolute definition of fungibility or non-fungibility in the end. But yes, NFTs I find utterly fascinating for their application. Another explanation of an NFT that I've heard recently is when you've got a card around your neck to get into the different rooms in a building, and so all of those cards are identical, but they have unique properties because they've got your photograph on, and they will let you into certain doors that others cannot get into. So that's kind of what an NFT does. It's yours, and it gives you a way to interact with software, whether that is opening a door or putting some money on it to pay in the canteen or whatever. And it has unique properties. You can't exchange it for your friends. That might have a different amount of credit on it for buying coffee. It may let you into different doors. So that is what an NFT is. It's a thing that allows you to do stuff, and it has data attached to it, whether that's an artwork, whether it's a digital twin of an asset moving through a supply chain. It can be anything you want it to be. It's wonderful.
It's amazing. So, yeah. And I think most of us are on this scratching the surface, thinking like, well, it's just a picture of a funny picture. I mean, if I asked my mom, she should probably like, why would anyone pay so much money for it? But yeah, can we talk about that the NFTs disrupting the music, the art industry?
Oh, absolutely.
Because I think that might be something interesting for some of the people in the audience.
Sure. I mean, the art side is well established now because it is visual, so it attracts more people. And that's the long and short of it. So a lot of the groundwork's been done by the artists, the musicians, which is brilliant. I actually have a friend who's a digital artist, and his experience was that he trained in fine art, went to Camberwell, explored all his different media that he wished to work with, left Camberwell at the end of his degree, didn't want to see a paintbrush again in his life, it sounds very familiar, and went off and worked more in design and more in the original Web 1.0, actually building websites. At the time there were two companies, one in London, one outside of London, and they divided the work between them, and they were doing everything. It was all blue and yellow and grey. And so when he moved back into creating, he had always created, but he moved back into finding a medium again and found himself comfortable with digital art. So when the iPad started to emerge and he was doing digital art, and then he'd go and display, because he's displaying in galleries and being asked to exhibit, and he would print things up in beautiful giclée, and people would say, which one's the original? And he goes, this one on the iPad. And they go, well, that's just a print, I'm not paying that money for it. So he didn't have a way to provenance, this is the original artwork. And when he saw an NFT, he went, that's what I can do, that shows that this is the original. So I actually own a couple of the artworks because I like them, and I have since printed them out and put them on the wall, but that's my choice. But I have ownership of that, and I'm proud to have ownership of it. If I wanted to right-click it and print it off, that would be a bit like going to the the museum shop and paying for a sheet, and you can do that. If that's what you want and you want to put it on your wall, that's great. And I have got things like that. I've got fibres worth of Van Gogh or whatever. But if you want the real thing, you've got a chance to have the real thing. So that's the art side of things.
Yes.
So that ownership piece starts to change the mindset a little. So then you say, well, what about music? So it's a different way of consuming. And you look at the streaming services and Spotify, and you say, well, is it 98.6% of artists on Spotify earn less than $12 a month? And you've got this huge bell curve where the big artists earn everything. And how are you going to change that? You can't change that curve. You could put streaming fees up, but it's still going to be there. So with NFTs, you have the chance to disrupt, and it's almost like a Patreon model. But taking that idea of ownership, I own the original track from this session. I remember somebody had session tapes from a band that was quite successful in the 80s, and we all had copies of them, but she had the original one, we'd just done tape to tape. And we knew which was the original, and we knew which ones were the copies, and that's the opportunity with music, alongside merchandising and so on. I've got a Dolly Parton NFT.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that.
I do actually have a Dolly Parton NFT. She did, I saw Dolly Parton 2 weeks ago, it was extraordinary. And she did an airdrop, so if you were at the concert, you got a free NFT. Oh, yeah, it makes me very happy. There we go. And she was also selling her album as an NFT.
Like my question was, how much did you pay for that? But
no, it was free.
Concert tickets. Yeah.
Well, actually, no, it was my South by Southwest pass. But interestingly, anyone could queue up to get in. But I heard on the grapevine, as you do, that if you'd bought a Batfan South by Southwest special NFT, which was 20 quid, and you had a badge, you got to the front of the queue. So I went through the process of getting myself a Batfan, which was quite painful, and I'm talking to the developers now. But because I now had my NFT of a bat drinking beer, really, that had utility for me, and the utility in the real world for me was I got to the front of the queue for Dolly.
And that's also community building, I think. I was listening to Paul some time ago, one of the recordings when he bought, I think that was the Seneca, was monkey kind of NFT, but that's a kind of link the whole community, a certain community together. Here we see you're going to Dolly Parton's gig, and then there was this, what was it, I think a designer, they designed Snickers, and so I think within 5 minutes, $3.1 million in 5 minutes.
For the virtual sneakers.
For the virtual sneakers,
so that's
fashion, yeah. And I thought, I've always thought that it's more kind of like, brands minting the NFT for an item that already exists, and then people are paying for that, like Chanel kind of NFT for Chanel accessories or whatever. And then that was the other way around.
The other way around,
so it was just like
paying
paying for a digital item. Obviously, it wasn't one item for $3.1 million, but a number of people. And when watching the interview with the designer, he was like, we were watching that. You know, it was like surreal to watch, like within 5 minutes, to earn that much money. But then that community of NFT holders got actually the actual sneakers. So now you know when they're wearing them, like, oh, these are the guys with the NFTs.
Yes.
So that's another creating. And I think fashion is going also very much in that space.
There's two elements. Crikey, there's so much to unpack just in that.
Sorry.
No. I mean, if you think about, we used to think about very linear way about this is a physical good, this is a digital good. But what about when you order something digitally online and it's delivered physically? Or what if you order something and you get a 3D printing pattern and you print it yourself? So the delivery of the physical asset has been digital. So you start to chuck around what is physical and what is digital. And in that particular case, the original delivery of the asset is digital. And then the ownership of that digital asset allows you to do something in the real world. So the rights and the rights that are conferred on the owner of a digital asset are not exclusively virtual. They are equally valid in the real world according to the contract. I think somebody had on a Lazy Lions or a Bored Ape Yacht Club set of merchandise, because when you own the individual artwork, you can exploit it commercially. You have the right to do so. I can do that with my crypto kitties, but nobody wants them. No, I don't think I have the rights to that. No, she'll have all the IP on that. But it's this conflation of physical and digital is really fascinating. But the metaverse piece in terms of fashion and brands, because there is this interest in ownership and in the virtual world, a lot of brands are going in that direction. And it's, how do you dress your avatar? And if you have an avatar walking through Decentraland wearing a hoodie with your brand on the back, do they get advertising money? Is that a way? Do you drop them some cash for the number of people that they interacted with while they were wearing your hoodie and advertising your brand? I mean, the possibilities are endless. This is where the fiction comes from, because I sort of go, oh, what if, and I have to try really hard to rein it back when I'm doing real consultancy. It's like, that doesn't work yet.
What about because obviously you can buy the clothing for your avatar, and we at the start of Brian's event, one of the events in the past, we had actually a metaverse event, and my avatar was naked. Unfortunately, yeah, but you can buy clothing or clothes for your avatar. Yeah. But I saw somewhere, actually the augmented reality or VR clothing that you could. Potentially, I don't think you can wear it like on yourself nowadays. Now it's not ready yet, is it? How close are we? So if I buy the virtual,
in terms of augmented, now there's lots of interesting stuff going on with that. Gosh, actually, Laura would know. There was somebody who was at South by Southwest. They're working with. They started off before COVID doing augmented reality theatre, effectively, experiences inside a container. Dark field, and they obviously, when it got to COVID, you didn't put people in containers anymore because you simply couldn't, and so they had to reinvent themselves to do augmented reality theatre with people sitting at a table. And there's another company doing something quite similar where they're projecting augmented reality performances into the middle of into the room in front of you. And so I don't think it's very far away that we could be projecting our avatar as part of that augmented reality. I mean, the thing is, if you step back and say, you can buy your clothes and trade them, they don't have unique value. So it's not actually a new concept. It's just that there are extra bells and whistles going on here.
Great. A few last questions before we go to the Q&A. How do you ensure that your physical asset and that digital asset are connected? I mean, I don't know whether it actually that makes sense. Or if they're digital, if they're physical assets. Let's say I have a piece of art on my wall, then I do the NFT, and the physical one gets stolen. What happens?
Digital twinning. Yeah, digital twinning. That's a really interesting one, because what can you do? I think one of the earliest daft things with art was someone said, oh, we're going to verify art. And someone in the audience went, oh, okay, so you upload a picture of Mona Lisa, and you put in the time and date that you painted it. I painted this on Tuesday. So now that he's on the blockchain as having painted the Mona Lisa. Because, of course you would. But the idea of twinning is actually far more advanced than you would think, and far more accurate than you think. Louis Vuitton, so with the Aura consortium blockchain, I think there are RFID tags in all of the luxury goods now, so you can actually go back and you can see the source of the raw materials, and you can see the provenance of the item, and you can see the care instructions and how much was paid for it, and whether it's gone through the secondary market and so on. So loads and loads of information coming through, and we have a lot of stuff on the supply chain. So, and that is often done by multiple bits of metadata around it. There's a company in Singapore called Demuto who I absolutely love. They do fruit and vegetables, really perishable things, and they started off with a photograph of the fruit to prove it was actually okay when it left the collators and then the wholesalers and so on. So they knew who the insurance claim should go to if it was smashed, instead of just sending it right down to the producer again. And now they're at the point of, what are they now doing? Is it spectrographic analysis for the degree of ripeness of an avocado? So you have, you actually have an Internet of Things aspect there going, okay, these avocados are at this degree of ripeness, and that goes straight into the metadata record for the NFT that represents those avocados. And it's all RFID and QR codes and so on, but generally, people who have done the exercise of tracing a physical supply chain in parallel with a digital supply chain, they've come up with the same answer quicker.
Wow. It's amazing. I mean, so much going on in this space, and it's so new, even if it's, you say it's been here for 20 years, it's still so new. Thank you very much. It was really, really interesting.
Thank you.
Round of applause.